Hi, welcome to episode 495 of The Corner of Knit and Tea. My name is Laura. I'm also known as Fluffy Kira over on Instagram, Twitter, and Blue Sky. I blog over at thecornerofknitandtea.com, which is where this episode and every episode show notes will be. And I have an Etsy shop where I sell my handspun yarns and knitting patterns. Hi, how are you? I hope that you are doing well. It is Monday, November 4th, and it is a very overcast and rainy day here just outside Kansas City. And, excuse me, I have a light on, which is kind of going to distort the color a little bit, but it just kept getting darker and darker and darker in here. And so I decided we could use a little bit of light. So I hope that you are doing well. I had a good weekend. We went out of town for my husband's family's potluck Thanksgiving, and my mother-in-law is one of 8 siblings, and 6 of them were there. And so it was a good weekend with seeing lots of family that we hadn't seen in a while, and everybody sort of, the main family that puts it on brings turkey and ham, and then everybody else brings all their own dishes. So it was a good time with lots of good food. And it was a bit of a long drive. It's about a 5.5-hour drive over to southern Illinois from our house, like I said, just outside of Kansas City. And so we drove over early on Saturday morning. We got up super early and went over on Saturday morning, and then we drove home on Sunday. So it was kind of a quick weekend trip. I did have some time in the car to knit, and I do have a few new things, or one old thing, one new thing, I guess, to show you. And so I was able to get some amount of knitting done. Actually, it was very funny because I went looking for needles the night before we left, and could only find one needle in the size that I wanted, and it wasn't the cable that I wanted. And I thought, oh, okay, I'll take it. I know I won't like it, but I'll take it. And then the next morning we got up, we left the house about 5 a.m. And so I had to wait for it to actually get light before I could start to knit. And I was trying to cast on for my Nanny Swimo sweater with this needle, and I was going to have to magic loop with it. And the problem is that I don't like the cable because it's just not conducive to my knitting and less conducive to my knitting magic loop. And so I was trying to cast on, and it was like 7 in the morning, and we were traveling dead east. So the sun was like right in my eyes, and I couldn't get the cast on, and I got super frustrated, and I kind of threw it down, and Wes was like, "What's happening? Are you not knitting that?" And I was like, "I guess not." And he's like, "Did you bring any other knitting?" And I kind of grumped, "It's in the trunk." So not too soon after that, he made an excuse to stop. He was like, I should take a restroom break. So he's like, you get your knitting out of the trunk. So I got some knitting out of the trunk. And then he came back and said, "What's the problem?" And I said, "Oh, it's the wrong needle and the wrong..." And the funny thing was that I had taken a pair of socks and a sweater with me. And I had figured that was going to be more than enough knitting because I haven't been able to do that much knitting. And then I was afraid I was going to finish the socks. So I ended up finding a yarn store. There is a lovely yarn store I think it's called Fiber and Threads. And it is exit 16 off Highway 64, just after you cross from St. Louis into Illinois. You know, we got just to the other side of East St. Louis, and then there was a lovely store that was like right off the highway, and we were there super early. Like I said, we left our house at 5 in the morning because we were supposed to be at Thanksgiving around noon. And so we pulled into the parking lot of this yarn store at 9:55 in the morning, and the store opened at 10. And so I went in and bought some new needles so I could work on my project. And then we went on our way, and we went to the family reunion. And then I cast on yesterday on the way home, and then last night I sat it at night with my friends and worked on it quite a bit. So I have a little bit to show you there. So that's a little story about how you never know when you're gonna need a yarn store or new needles, and GPS is wonderful, and my husband is very tolerant. So that was my weekend. I hope that yours was good. I have 3 knitting projects to show you today. I have been spinning just a little bit on the fiber that I talked about last week, but I didn't bring that. And I have no sewing because I wasn't really home to work on the machine this past weekend. So hopefully I will work on some sewing this coming weekend. And this week I do not have a chicken for the City Girl Farm, so I'm hoping to get lots of work done on the 2 projects that I have in progress. So let's talk about projects. It will be 3 knitting projects, one that's finished, and then one that is almost finished, and one that I have just started. So let's start there. The finished object is my mom's sweater. I wasn't sure that I was going to bring this back because I was so close last week, but I wanted to show you that I did finish it. I still have to weave in the ends on the sleeves, but remember, this is the Night Out cardigan by Joji Locatelli. I knit it in Manos del Uruguay Alegria in the Thistle colorway, and my mom wanted a little bit of a redo on the sleeves. She wanted them to be a little smaller in circumference and a little bit shorter in length. The sweater is knit top down in the round, top down in the round as a raglan, or I guess back and forth, not in the round, but top down as a raglan, so I was able to pull back and re-knit the sleeves, and I guess I didn't quite get the water high enough here, but you can see now it's all nicely blocked and finished, and I just need to weave in the final ends, and so it is done and ready to go back to her. I'm very excited about that. I will give this back to her when I see her for Thanksgiving at the end of the month, and hopefully it will be exactly what she wanted it to be, and so that is that one done and dusted, and I finished it by a couple days before the end of the year. I finished it on Monday night, so I had some time last week to work on other things, so that is that one. So the other thing that I'm working on right now is I am working on socks for Miles. And if you remember last week, I showed you the first finished sock. So let's get everything out of the bag here. So this is the first finished sock. And this is, it is Knit Picks. It is Hawthorne fingering in the Vancouver colorway, and that is an 80% superwash fine Highland wool, 20% polyamide, 357 yards to 100 grams, and it is kind of in green, blue, and purple. And so I finished the first one, and I am getting very close on the second one. I still have maybe half the foot to go, but that's still pretty close considering I hadn't even cast it on last week. So I have my 2x2 ribbing up at the top, my cuff, a slip stitch, and gusset, heel flap, and then the foot. And I am probably about halfway down the foot. So I just need to finish that off, and my hope is that I will finish that off. I think maybe 2 more knitting sessions. I'm not sure I will finish it off in one, but I'll work on it this evening, and then if I don't finish it this evening, I will definitely finish it tomorrow. So again, Socks for Miles, he just turned 8. So I went to the Craft Yarn Council to kind of see what I needed, and these may be a little bit big, but that's okay. This should be Easy Care yarn. I don't know that it says machine wash gentle, tumble dry low. So yes, it should be Easy Care yarn, which is exactly what I wanted for the kiddos. And that is, and actually my nails match this time. So this is the almost done sock, and I've used a chunk of the balls. So I'll have enough left over. I won't have enough left over to do socks for me anymore. I think those days are gone, but it can go into my sock yarn blanket, or I can combine it with something else to do fingerless mitts or something. I don't know. So that is the sock currently in progress, and before next week I will definitely be casting on Roxy socks. They will be roughly similar, because I think actually the kids' feet are about the same sizes. She is 11 now, and her feet are just probably right close to my size. My sister said they're a tiny bit. My sister said that Roxy's feet are a tiny bit smaller than hers, and I think my sister is like a half size bigger than me. So I think I'll just make the socks just little smaller than what I would wear, and I think that will be good. Hers are going to be out of 3 Irish Girls Adorn sock, which is an 80% merino, 20% nylon, machine wash gentle, lay flat to dry. They'll be able to wash it anyway. And is this not superwash merino? Huh. That's a thought. I might have to look at that, because this doesn't say superwash, and I don't want her to felt her socks. But it says machine wash gentle and cool, so it'll be fine. 430 yards, and the colorway is called You Are My Sunshine, and that is this one right here. I wound it last night, and it is similar colors. It has yellow, but it's blue and purple. I guess it doesn't have a ton of green. It has some spots where the yellow overlaps, but that is what I will be, and I wound it without an Osta pin, so it's in a perfectly round, well, not a perfectly round ball, but a round ball, and that is the pair of socks that I will cast on as soon as I am done with Miles. Again, I am knitting these socks for the kids' holiday gifts, and we exchange holiday gifts in my family at Thanksgiving, so I have to be ready kind of a month earlier than Christmas, which is why I'm always running out of time. But even if I finish my old socks tomorrow, that will still give me 20 some odd days to knit Roxy pair socks, and that should be no problem. And then we also have the car trip out to California, which is a couple long days of driving, and so if I have to finish these up on the way out there, I will. So that brings me to what I cast on. I am working on a Nanny Swimo sweater. I'm super excited. I showed you the yarn. I am knitting the Askews Me sweater pattern, and let me see if I can find a good photo of it, because not all the... I did it in black and white, and the photos are really dark. So I guess maybe you can sort of see that. That is Stephen West in his Askews Me sweater. It is a top-down turtleneck. It is worked in the round, and then it is a brioche sweater, and with some unmatched increases and decreases, you create kind of this angular top, and it kind of all works out. It's a little funky, a little angular, and I'm really excited to make one. I knit one a while ago as a sample for Zen Yarn Garden, and I always thought that I wanted to make my own, and so I kind of saved the pattern, and when Zen Yarn Garden announced they were going out of business, I ordered some yarn to make my own, and this weekend I cast on. So, and I have, okay, I don't have a lot of knitting to show you, but I have a fair bit considering that I have not been doing a ton of knitting. So it is a 2-color brioche pattern, and Stephen West calls for you to use scraps, but I wanted kind of a less scrappy version. And so I am using 2 colors. I'm using, they're somewhat matched on the color scale, so there isn't a lot of contrast, but what I am doing is I am using this dark purple, and these are both nightshades. It's easier to tell on this one. You can see the reason it's called nightshades is because it is a multiple ply, and one of the plies is black, which gives you kind of a barber poling of the yarn, and both skeins are actually the same base. It's just harder to see on the purple, but this is like a dark real purple that I'm using as the background color, so it's on the inside of the sweater. The thing about brioche is that brioche is reversible. So technically, I suppose you could wear this sweater inside and out, but the way I'm doing it is one is to be the foreground and the outside color, and one is to be the lining color. And so this is the lining color, and then this one right here with all the different colors is the outside color. Now, they are very close, and there are points at which they overlap, which actually was part of the reason that I was having such trouble casting on when the sun was in my eyes. It was really hard to tell. It calls for a 2-color cast on where you're alternating the colors so that when you start to work in brioche, you're working the correct stitches on the correct colors, and I was having a really hard time kind of mastering the cast on and making sure that I did it right, because at points this yarn is purple, and so it just looks like it matches the other yarn, and then the other problem I was having was that I was casting on too tightly. Anyway, so these are the 2 colors that I am working on, and the sweater starts with like a turtleneck, almost like a big cowl turtleneck up at the top, and so I cast on, and I have several inches. So this is what I have so far. So I love the way it's knitting up. It's just got all these pops of color against a background of purple. I think it's going to be really nice, and I think brioche also kind of helps mitigate any pooling or any of those kinds of things, because it creates some extra distance, and yeah, so as you can see, it also looks kind of the same on the other side, except that the purple would be the foreground color, but that is not what I'm doing with it. So this will be the inside of the sweater, and this is the outside, and I've probably got about 3 inches maybe of the collar, and so I am working on it, and I'm really enjoying this, and it was a pleasure to knit. So the interesting thing about doing brioche in the round is that, so in brioche, basically brioche is sort of a slip stitch patterning. It's a little more complicated than that, but you're basically working 1 color at a time across the rows. And so when you're working brioche in working back and forth, you're actually working 1 color across the row, and then you slide the stitches back and you work the 2nd color across the row, and then you actually then turn your work, and then you do the same thing. So you're always working each row twice. The interesting thing about working brioche in the round is because you don't have like a right side and a wrong side, you're not like switching things around. You work first with the main color, then with the contrasting color, and then you just keep going in those patterns. So for instance, on the On the multicolor one, I am always working the knit row. So I'm always knitting or slipping one with yarn over. And on the dark purple, I am always working the purl row. And so you just don't have to go back and forth quite as much. And I find that it makes it kind of easier to work because you're not working like 4 rows to like complete 2 rows of patterning. You're just working 2 rows. It's a little complicated to explain, but I really do like brioche. I think there's definite rhythm to it, and I was pleasantly surprised that whatever I was doing was not really hurting my hands. So I did maybe half of this in the car yesterday, and then I did the other half last night at knit night. And again, it's not a huge amount of knitting. I'm not trying to brag, oh look at what I've finished, but I'm very pleased because I expected the cowl neck, the turtleneck would take me several days, and I should be able to finish this and be able to move on to the body this week, or at least the yoke shaping. It's not exactly raglan shaping. If I remember correctly, I think there are 3 points at which it increases. Like I said, this one's a little bit off kilter. That's why it's called Askews me, S-K-E-U, S-K-E-W. So all the shaping is a little bit askew. It isn't your traditional like raglan where you increase at different points. So it's going to be a little bit of fun, and I am looking forward to getting into it. And the only thing that I have to decide is, so I swatched, and then I couldn't decide which size needle I wanted, and then I ended up buying new needles, and so I am currently, the pattern calls for 9s, I am currently on 8s for the neck, and I can't decide if the gauge that I'm getting for the neck, so brioche is, it's kind of a netted way of knitting so that your yarns are kind of interlocked, and they create kind of this open, airy, it's not exactly a mesh, but they create this very, very stretchy fabric. And I find it really hard to sort of figure out what your gauge is in brioche because like you can always stretch it. It's a little bit like ribbing in the sense that it always puffs up. Anyway, I can't decide if this is quite as firm as I want it, so I'm using the neck kind of as my gauge swatch and also as my kind of deciding how firm I want the fabric to be. And so I might go down a needle size, go down to a 7 for the body. I haven't decided yet. And that also will affect what size I choose to do of the pattern. So the pattern comes in small, medium, large, extra large, and a couple others. And I can't decide whether I'm doing a medium or a large. Last time I knit a large and I think it fit me fine. But depending on which needle size I stick with, I might make a different choice this time, so I can't decide. And the pattern is meant to be worn with quite a bit of ease, but I don't love a ton of ease, so I have to figure out, I think my size choices are 43 and 46, and I might end up going towards 43 because that would give me about 5 inches of positive ease. So 46 might be a little bit much. I have a 38-inch bust, so we'll see. But that is, I just love this fabric. It looks like candy. I'm so excited. Anyway, so that is what I am working on this week. So my hope is that I'll finish the first pair of socks this week, get started on the second, and then finish the neck here and do all that before Friday before I get another chicken, because then I'll have to work that into the routine. But for this month, you will probably see me working on socks and my sweater. And then if I manage to finish Roxy's socks before I go to California, or I think I'll finish them in enough time, I actually am going to pull out some socks for me. Let's see, are they over here? I can't tell. Hang on just a second. Let me see if they're over here. Nope, they're not. Nope, they are not. So I don't have them right here, but the deal is that if I manage to finish the socks for Roxy, I have another pair of socks for myself that is in progress, and I will probably put, those are on a magic loop, and I've kind of stalled out on those, so I'm going to put the DP ends in them, and I'm going to take those on my trip with me to try and finish those. Generally, we drive to California and back. It's a lot of driving in the car. A lot of times I finish a lot of things, like usually I'm able to crank out the last of my Nanny Swimo sweater. I do not expect that, but I will probably take 2 projects, so I have some things to alternate between. The yarn I'm using for my sweater is a worsted weight, and of course the yarn I'm using for the socks is a fingering weight, and that's a good differential to sort of give my hands a break and give them a little something different to work on. So that is all I have for you this week. It's kind of a shorter episode. Next week, I hope maybe I'll come at you with a little bit of quilting. I have 2 more strips to put on my quilt top, and then I need to sew together the backing, and then I need to make my quilt sandwich and get started on quilting that. And so I might get to that this coming weekend. We'll see. I have some plans on Saturday. But my plans on Saturday include going and hanging out with a friend who's going to have some surgery this week. And she's a knitter as well. And so I'll be taking my knitting with me, and I'll definitely be working on knitting during that. So I hope that you have a lovely week ahead. I hope that your weather is giving you all the fall feels. It is like a super rainy day here, and it's going to be kind of chilly for the next couple days. And so I'm very excited about that because I'm all in on fall weather right now. Anyway, I hope that you are doing well. And until I see you next time, I will say, as I always do, happy knitting, happy crocheting, happy sewing, embroidering, spinning, happy sipping. And I will see you next time. Bye.